Hello and welcome to another video. I just watched Frankenstein, the new Guillermo Del Toro film from last week that released on Netflix, and absolutely loved it. So I wanted to share my thoughts and my reviews. So let's get ready. Let's jump in. One of the things of this movie that I just immediately latched onto was the characters and the performances. It mostly features Dr. Victor Frankenstein, played by Oscar Isaac, as well as the creature from Jacob Elordi, which was new to me. I had not seen him in anything previously. We had Elizabeth with Mia Goth. Then we had Harlander, one of my personal favorite actors in Christoph Waltz. And then finally, William Frankenstein. All of these really were great performances, but for me, there was two standouts, and that was Dr. Victor Frankenstein from Oscar Isaac and the creature from Jacob Elordi. What I loved most about Frankenstein's character was just this dark descent that his character went on. You get to kind of meet him in his childhood and his adolescence, and you kind of get a background on all of the horrible things that kind of happened to him as a child, with the loss of his mother, being raised by his father, and just the mistreatment that he experienced from that. And you get to see him kind of put this thing upon himself that he wants to do better than his father. So he pursues a similar career path and seeks to just do better and do the things that his father failed to do. And it kind of comes to a point that it's a fault. And I thought that was really just cathartic for the character. I found that to be a really interesting trajectory to send him on. And you get to kind of see this unstoppable pursuit for this one thing that in the end leads to his failure to redeem what things his father imparted on him. And in the end, you kind of see him, though he's the protagonist of this movie, become the villain. And that's such an interesting direction to take this character on, and Oscar Isaac absolutely nailed it. There's such an interesting duality to his character, with your desire to see him succeed, while at the same time just the dread that you're watching as he's making these unethical and horrible and terrifying choices that just lead to his downfall. So I thought he was an incredible character and a very, very strong performance from Oscar Isaac. And then with Jacob Elordi as the creature, this was one that really caught me off guard because I'm not familiar with Jacob Elordi as an actor. But as soon as the creature, as is named in this movie, gets, we're familiar with the story of Frankenstein, gets brought to life, it immediately kind of switches gears as far as where your allegiances lie for the character. Because, you're following with Frankenstein, you're rooting for him to kind of be successful and do this accomplishment that he's seeking. But as soon as he gets there, there's a change that takes place in him, and you kind of switch sides as far as who you're rooting for in this story because of the decisions that he's making and just the failures that he's making. And so I really liked the dynamic that these two characters had, and the kind of switcheroo that we got to see as far as where the audience's allegiances might lie. He himself had a very fresh design for the character, which I thought was really cool. I got to see something that was really totally new as far as the creature is concerned, for the makeup and the prosthetics and all that goes into just designing this character was incredible. And then not only that, but just the way that he carries himself as the character, the micro acting moments, the non-verbal cues that he gives, all of these little tiny inflections really go a long way to just selling the pain that this character is in, the internal turmoil and struggles that he's going through and experiencing. And he really, in the end, becomes the heart of the film. So those were definitely the two standout performances for me. And then just the two of them together, the chemistry that they have on screen is excellent. And it's interesting chemistry because most of the time of this movie, they are butting heads and they're against one another. And so it's just a really interesting way to portray that relationship, the dynamic, and the chemistry that those two characters had on screen. So before we continue and jump into the story and themes, definitely let me know in the comments what your favorite character was from the movie. And regarding the story, we do get to follow a generally similar plot to what Frankenstein has come to be known as. But beyond that, Guillermo Del Toro really puts his own spin on it, and it is definitely an adaptation. I am not familiar at all with the original book of Frankenstein. It's one I would like to read at some point. I have seen the original Frankenstein movie from the 30s and a couple of other Frankenstein things here and there. So I'm definitely familiar with the story of Frankenstein due to just the nature that it has within our pop culture, but I really loved the way that this story was adapted for this take on it. As I said, we get to follow Frankenstein as he's looking to just develop and create this life. And then once he achieves it, things change. I don't want to spoil anything, but different things take place to kind of shift your priorities, shift the gears. And there's even a shift of POV across the story as far as what point of view you're experiencing the story through that I really enjoyed as well. The themes were some of my favorite aspects of the movie. It was definitely one of the deepest parts for me personally. I really liked the themes that it had on parenting and parenthood, the challenges that it brings, the successes and the failures, and kind of our piece as the parent to play in that role. And even looking at it from a child's perspective, where the creature technically is the child of Frankenstein, and just getting to see what that would look like in this kind of a setting and through this lens in this story. I found that really compelling. And then surprisingly, there was a lot to do with love, what that looks like in different ways, especially in something so unique through the lens of this type of a story. And again, no spoilers, but the theme of forgiveness and what it takes to get to the point that you might forgive someone for some horrific actions that they have taken against you personally, I absolutely was enamored with that. Moving on to the direction and just the crew and everything else that went into this movie. As I've already mentioned, Guillermo Del Toro absolutely just directs the heck out of this movie. It's a very, very, very well directed film. It might move up to my favorite, or it's probably already at least in my top 3 for him. Personally, I love Pan's Labyrinth, Pinocchio, and Pacific Rim the most from him. This Frankenstein probably sits somewhere in that 1 to 3 range right now. So I just was absolutely awestruck by the direction that this movie takes. As is always the case with Guillermo del Toro movies, it is a highly practical film. A lot of the sets and locations are real. There's minimal blue screen, minimal visual effects put into this movie. I watched the documentary that is also on Netflix. It's like a 45-minute special where they walk you through a lot of what went into creating the different sets and locations for this one, and it's just absolutely incredible. There's several sequences that take place on a large ship. They actually built the boat and they put it on a gimbal so they could move it around and shift it as needed. The tower and the castle where Frankenstein does his work and creates the creature is a practical tower. It's like a 30-foot bigature, kind of like what they used to do with the Lord of the Rings movies. And then they actually built the top part where all of this science and experimentation takes place and filmed all of it practically. There's just so many incredible practical elements to this movie that only someone like Guillermo del Toro can pull off and accomplish, and I loved them for that. Besides that, the style that this movie has is immediately recognizable as something from Guillermo del Toro, and I love that there's such a distinct style with his movies that you can immediately pick out when his hands and fingerprints are all over a film. I think some other key roles that definitely had something to play with this one is the cinematography, the way that each shot is captured. I did not look up who the cinematographer for this movie is. I'll put it on screen as an editor's note, but I loved the cinematography. Every shot could be a work of art. There's just amazing work and detail put into what set up each location, shot, and the framing that goes into it. And then also besides that, I was just taken aback by the soundtrack for this movie. I watched the movie on Friday last week when it released, and I basically have not listened to anything else besides that soundtrack since I've seen the movie. I've spent hours through this score, and I absolutely love it more and more every single time. And not only that, I do want to go and watch this movie again, definitely before the end of the year, so I can really cement where I want to put this movie in my favorite movies of the year list, because it's very high up right now and it's a very tight race. So Alexander Desplat which I'm probably butchering the name. I'm sorry for my American knowledge on that, but incredible score from him. I really like his previous work, and this might be his best score yet. So all of these different technical elements very, very much easily enhanced the film. It just gives it this tangibility and this tactileness that feels like you're just truly experiencing it. And they just don't make movies quite like this anymore. I know it's a common saying to say, which is kind of nice that the saying is becoming more common these days with different directors like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. And I'm happy to say that Guillermo Del Toro keeps and maintains that real tactile and just genuine feel of a movie and the practicality that it carries. Overall, I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. I absolutely loved it, and I would love to check this one out again very soon. Let me know what you thought of the film in the comments down below. Answer those questions I asked. Let me know what you would score the movie as well. I cannot recommend this one enough. I've been raving about it to just about everyone that I see. So let me know what you thought of it if you've seen it down in the comments below. And if you haven't, you got to go watch it and then come back and let me know. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I will see you in the next one.